At the end of the 19th century, Palestine had been under the rule of the Turkish Ottoman Empire for almost 4 centuries. By the start of the Zionist immigration or Aliyah in 1881, Palestine's population numbered around 460,000, made up of 400,000 mostly Sunni Muslims, 40,000 Christians, mostly Greek Orthodox, and some 15,000 to 20,000 Jews. Palestinian economy in the earlier half of the century was mostly dependent on subsistent agricultural farming, with a limited amount of export or manufactured goods, such as soap and textiles, to Syria and Egypt. Its society was split into 3 distinct groups. The Fellahin, or peasant farmers, who formed a majority of the population, lived in the hilly regions along the central spine of Palestine that offered them protection, only venturing into urban centres to sell and trade surplus crops. The Bedouin, the local nomadic tribes that lived on the plains of Palestine, often looting and harassing the Fellahin villages and communities. And the Ayan, or the urban notables, the powerful families and Ottoman officials who lived in the urban commercial centres like Jerusalem, Hebron and Nablus. But the strength of the Ottoman Empire was fading and was quickly losing ground to other rival European empires like Britain, France and Russia. Now referred to as the sick man of Europe, the Ottomans created a series of reforms collectively known as the Tanzimat to try and stem the empire's waning power and to reassert and centralise its control over its territories. 2 of the reforms in particular would have a profound effect on Palestinian society and economy, and would by the end of the 20th century turn the region on its head. The first was the abolition of trade barriers with the European powers in 1838. This for the first time opened up Palestine's coastal regions to international trade and export. The introduction of British trade created a large demand for citrus fruits, which marked the creation of cash crops and the transformation of Palestine from an almost purely subsistent economy to that of a market economy. Increased European penetration also brought with it an influx of missionaries that brought with them modern medicine, education and institutions. These had a strong effect on literacy, and in particular a decrease in mortality rates that led to huge population increases. The second was the creation of a land registry in Palestine in 1858, an attempt to centralise its power and administer more direct control over the region which had previously been granted a great deal of autonomy. The Fellahin were now forced to buy the land they had already been cultivating for years in order to claim legal ownership over it. With the Fellahin unable to pay for the land and unwilling to become part of the Ottomans' harsh tax system, much of the land was bought up by Ottoman notables on the Ayan. And also unable to afford the rich land, irrigation systems and years of preparatory cultivation that had to be invested into the growing of citrus fruits, the Fellahin were also excluded from the growing cash crop economy, which in turn further widened the disparity that existed between the Ayan and the Fellahin. Throughout the course of the 19th century, Palestine had undergone a massive change. Its population had increased dramatically, both as a result of natural increase, immigration from surrounding regions to take advantage of Palestine's new economy, and European immigration. European penetration also brought with an economic transformation that saw an urbanization of its population and expanded development along its coastal regions. The European influence, along with the Ottoman reforms, also saw a shift in power from the sheikhs and rural community leaders to the urban families that will play a leading role in Palestine's nationalistic awakenment and its aspirations of statehood in the coming decades.